Well, we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. Let's invite the administration to join us first. I'd like to welcome Mr. Bruno Loke, Deputy Secretary for Financial Services and Treasury, and then Mr. Andrew Lai, Permanent Secretary, and then Ms. Portia Lee, Chief Treasury Accountant of Civil Aviation Department. We are going to first consider the merits and demerits of the bill, the principles, and also the policy issues. Now, I'll first invite the administration to take us through the bill. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Thank you for considering the Air Passenger Departure Tax Amendment Bill 2025. We would like to make two amendments to the APDT ordinance. First, we'd like to put in place the proposals in the 2025-26 budget. That's to increase the APDT from $100 to $200 per passenger. We expect that it will bring an additional $1.6 billion of revenue to the government. The last time the rate was revised, it was 23 years ago, and it was an increase from $180 to $120. That was in 2003. So we believe that the impact is minimal on air passengers, including tourists. And then we want to allow sufficient time for adjusting the system and for promotion and publicity. So therefore, we propose that the increased APDT will take effect on the 1st of October this year. So for those who've purchased air tickets before the date, passengers will not be affected. So APDT applies when someone purchases an air ticket. So if you purchase an air ticket on or after the 1st of October this year, then you will have to pay $200. But before that, if you buy an air ticket, you're still paying the old price. And then the second amendment is on the administration fee arrangement. Every month, airlines have to first deduct the administration fee agreed with the government, and then they will transfer the remaining amount to a specified account of the government. But then, because of the requirements in the of the public finance ordinance, that there is a need to first transfer the provision from the FSTB to the CAD, and the CAD will have to charge to the general revenue account. So we want to simplify the arrangement. We propose to empower the financial secretary. So he will allow airlines to retain part of the received APDT to offset the administration fee due to them. So then this will not be a part of general revenue, and this will save the effort of the FSTB having to make a provision each year for the sum, and then it will only take 2 to 3 months later before the receipt will actually go to the general revenue account. So this arrangement does not affect passengers at all. Well, there are similar arrangements, say for road tunnels. If there are operators operating road tunnels, they will also deduct their operating costs from the tunnel tolls received before giving the money, passing on the money to the government. So its arrangement is the same here. And so this arrangement will take effect after the enactment of the ordinance. Now we believe we understand that some in the public and in the industry are worried that this may undermine the position of Hong Kong as an international aviation hub. In particular, will it dampen the interest of passengers who make connecting flights through Hong Kong? So we've had exchanges with airliners and the airport authority in the past few weeks. So there are proposals on relaxation of the measures. I'll first listen to members' views, and then I'll explain why we could allow certain relaxation outside the scope, the framework of the law. Well, since members asked, I will also explain these arrangements to you. In Schedule 2 of the Air Passenger Departure Tax Ordinance APDTO, there are exemptions that say if you're aged under 12, you don't need to, you're exempted from paying the APD. If you stay in the restricted area, then you don't need to pay. And then if you arrive and leave on the same day, you are exempted as well. But then, for certain international flights, some may arrive in Hong Kong late at night. Maybe passengers arrive in Hong Kong at noon or in the afternoon, but then the next flight only departs after midnight. That means they would have stayed in Hong Kong for more than a day. So therefore, for the exemption arrangement, we could extend it to passengers who leave Hong Kong the next day. If actually other international airports have a 24-hour exemption, and our arrangement is more liberal than 24 hours. It's the next day. So if you leave, if you arrive at say 00:35, that means you could stay for longer, for almost 48 hours in Hong Kong without paying the DT. But then there's an increase of $80 now. It's not much actually, but will it dampen the interest of passengers in making flights in Hong Kong? So with this relaxation, we can we surely can offset that impact. So why can't we propose amendments to the bill to make this possible? We've talked to the Department of Justice. The long title of the bill is narrowly defined. It's about increasing revenue. So if we allow this exemption, then it goes against the long title of the bill. So that's why we will have to propose another amendment bill later to put in place the new exemption arrangement. And so we will amend Schedule 2 to achieve that. We hope to complete that exercise in the next few months. Thank you. Members, questions on policy issues? Please press the request to speak button if you wish to speak. 5 minutes for each member, okay? Please watch the time. First, Mr. Perry-Yu. Please read out the list, the order. Mr. Perry-Yu, Reverend Peter Kuhn, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Benson Look, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, and Dr. Hong, Wendy Hong, Mr. Rock Chen, Mr. Gary Chen, Mr. Chen Siu Hong, Ms. Judy Chan, and Mr. Holden Chow. 5 minutes, Mr. Perry-Yu. Well, I'd like to follow up on the policy issues. As we all know, the international airport is the main artery for our connection with the mainland and world. Well, first I must declare I'm a member of the board of the airport authority. So, and then the Hong Kong International Airport is also a key engine driving our economic development. We want to consolidate our position as an international aviation hub, and there is keen competition among hubs. So, and there's also keen competition with our neighbors. I'm glad to learn from the administration that there will be a relaxation of the exemption arrangement for connecting passengers. But that's the airside, that we're talking about airside connection. So, the connection is extended from flights within the same day to flights on the next day. So I welcome that, but then that isn't far from enough, because we want to encourage more Greater Bay Area passengers to go through the Hong Kong International Airport. So whether they come by sea, on land, or by air, we're talking about different modes of passengers taking connecting flights. So I hope there will be exemption for all these passengers as well. I hope the government will continue to look into that. In any case, I think the focus of discussion today should be on the increased level. Now, air passengers already have to pay much on various taxes. Now, I've written various articles on that. I've done comparison with other places. Now, even if an air ticket is free, we are talking about $325 of tax. And if we're talking about long-haul flights, then we're talking about $425 because that's the airport construction levy as well. And airport construction levy will depend on whether the flight is a short or long-haul flight. So I think we are our fees and taxes and levies are close to that of Singapore. If we take into account the levy for long-haul flights, actually our amount exceeds that of Singapore. Now, we're told that there's been no increase since 2003 to 2004. So even if we go by inflation, we ought to be increasing the tax. But then we have to remember we have since imposed the airport construction levy since the last increase. So the cost keeps going up. Here, we are talking about proactively developing our tourism industry. We want to bring more people here. We want people to come and visit Hong Kong. We want to promote tourism is everywhere. So how come now we want to increase the tax? Yes, I know we have a dire fiscal situation. The government wants to increase revenue. Yes, we could appreciate that. All members are very much concerned about that too. But then with this policy, will you end up losing more than you gain? Do you have data to convince us that this level of increase is reasonable? Administration, thank you, Mr. Parayu, for your questions. Well, we share the same views as Mr. Yu and other members. We want to consolidate Hong Kong's position as an international aviation hub. So why is it that in the budget this year, the Financial Secretary announced the increase of the APDT? Well, that's actually Mr. Yu has already pointed that out. In the current fiscal year, now after we issue $150 billion of bond, we will still have a deficit of $67 billion. So in the latest budget, the government is adopting an approach of making savings and generating revenues. And on top of that, we also have bond issuance, so hopefully then we can contain the fiscal deficit. The government is acting in a rather restrained manner in increasing revenue. We focus more on making savings. In 2024 to 25, there were about 20 million passengers who paid $80. So that means we collected $1.6 billion. And some might say, well, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the $100 billion of deficit. But then we can't just say because the amount is too small, so we leave it alone. Because then if we don't increase one item and another item, then we end up not generating more revenue. In the last budget, that is the budget last year, the Financial Secretary proposed a progressive rate system, and then the additional revenue is just about $900 million. So it's only half of the additional revenue for increasing the APDT. So what sort of taxes can we increase to achieve additional revenue of $1.6 billion. So then we will have to increase the rates by 2.25%, because with a 5% rate we collect $30 billion a year. So we have to increase rates by 0.25% before we can collect an extra $1.6 billion. So having considered the whole picture, then the APDT is paid by both local residents and visitors, and then we haven't adjusted the rate for 20 years, and we're only increasing it from $120 to $200. We believe it is acceptable. And as I explained in my introduction, we fully appreciate the impact on connecting flight passengers. So that's why we've proposed an amendment to the arrangement. And then we could also talk to the airport authority later to see if there are any other additional measures that could help us to bring more passengers through to our airport. And this is nothing new. In Schedule 2, actually 2 years ago, we've added 2 other classes of passengers to the exempted list. For example, for people taking dedicated coaches from GBA to the airport, they enjoy the exemption. And then there are 9 ports in GBA. If they take charter ferry services to Sky City, these passengers also enjoy the exemption. And then maybe there are other arrangements that we could consider further. For example, what if there are dedicated coaches to take passengers from the express rail link terminal to the airport? Maybe we could consider that too. Well, we're going to propose another amendment bill to provide exemption to connecting flight passengers connecting to a flight on the next day. Then we are talking about foregone revenue of over $100 million. So that means with that exemption, we are only collecting 90% of the additional revenue.
Members, please take note. We have a lot of members waiting to speak. Please manage your time well and give time for the administration to reply to you. Thank you. Next member, Reverend Peter Kuhn. Thank you, Chairman. I have reservations about the increase in the APDT under the bill. Just now, the official seems to say that $80 isn't a large amount. I believe all increases should be backed with evidence, not like going to the wet market, just increasing the amount by a certain number. Is there any evidence or is there any basis for you to increase the amount? We are recovering after the pandemic. Cathay Pacific has just now started to repay the amount. After the third runway system, it seems there's a lot of room for us to attract tourists and passengers. It is strange to see that the administration is going to increase the APDT. Well, can you increase the amount by $30? The increase isn't a small one. You're going to increase the APDT by 2/3. That is about 67%. Can you adjust the amount afterwards? Instead of simply increasing the APDT directly to $200, I'd like to hear from the administration the grounds. Well, I understand members' point. The increase seems to be a large one, but what we are concerned about is the actual increase, that is $80. In 2024, the Tourism Board conducted studies on expenditure of tourists. For short-haul passengers, excluding those from the mainland, on average, each of the passengers spent about 6,200 Hong Kong dollars on the trip. For long-haul passengers or tourists, excluding airfares, Each of them spent about 7,500 Hong Kong dollars, so they spent an average of 6,000 to 7,000 dollars, excluding airfares. We believe the increase in the APDT by $80 is an acceptable amount. As Reverend Peter Cohen just now said, we are an international aviation hub. It is important to have connections with the rest of the world. We aren't attracting tourists or visitors just with a low price. The Hong Kong International Airport is an efficient airport. If we can attract more airlines to come to Hong Kong to provide medium to long haul routes, this will improve our connection with the world. This will be a highlight for us to attract more tourists to come to Hong Kong, so we aren't competing for tourists just with price. Reverend Peter Kuhn, thank you. Well, as I understand, for airports in other regions, what about budget airlines? Airfares of budget airlines aren't expensive, probably hundreds of dollars for an air ticket. We have Airport Authority representative with us to expand the aviation network and to attract more airlines to come to Hong Kong that have been doing their level best to do so. Last June, the Airport Authority launched a scheme to expand the aviation network. They provide a subsidy for airlines to provide new routes, or they increase the frequency of flights. 24 companies have been attracted to Hong Kong. In 35 destinations, they increased the frequency of flights. In other words, there are targeted measures which directly encourage airlines to provide more routes. They don't necessarily compete for tourists with price. Customer experience at the Hong Kong International Airport is good. We aren't just efficient, but more importantly, the Airport Authority has the vision of turning the Hong Kong airport into an airport city. The airport itself may become a tourist attraction as well. Then we may attract more tourists. Reverend Peter Kuhn, any follow-up? No, thank you, Chairman. Next, Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. We want to develop Hong Kong into an international aviation hub. At the same time, we want to promote the concept of tourism is everywhere. We want to attract more tourists to come to Hong Kong. The increase in the APDT, as members said, I have reservation about the increase in the APDT. It lacks scientific basis. No matter the time or the extent, I have reservation about it. The third runway has just now come into operation. A new terminal hasn't yet come into operation. When it's commissioned, it's not like you can open a terminal and not use it as you like. When it's opened, you have to use the terminal. So it's important to make good use of the third runway. We have put a lot of resources to building the third runway. So in relation to the time of increasing the APDT, have you considered the impact on the overall passenger throughput? Do you have any figures to back up the impact? I also thank Mr. Perry Yu for arranging for a meeting with the industry. We've heard from the intermediaries about the impact on airfares. And the existing mechanism causes extra pressure on cash flow for these operators or intermediaries? Have you looked into the situation? Have you talked to the industry regarding the overall increase, whether it's $20, $30, or $40? I'd like to know whether you will promise to take stock of the situation once again. Say, after we reach a certain passenger throughput amount, will you review the APDT? P.S. I thank Mr. Kenneth Lang for his views. The passenger throughput is increasing after the pandemic. In 2022, passenger throughput only 5.6 million. In 2023, 39.5 million, and last year we saw a throughput of 53.4 million. So the recovery momentum is healthy, so to speak. In 2023 to 24, about 16 million visitors came to Hong Kong. They paid APDT, contributing some 2 billion Hong Kong dollars. Last financial year, about 20 million passengers paid the APDT, contributing about 2.4 billion Hong Kong dollars. We need to cement our position as an international aviation hub. From our perspective, should we launch targeted measures? Should we provide subsidy schemes, for instance, to provide incentives to airlines? Well, Chairman, I was asking about figures and data. P.S. We didn't identify any factors that after increasing the APDT, there will be an impact on the number of visitors to Hong Kong. Regarding airfares, after the APDT is increased, will it cause cash flow difficulties for travel agencies? In fact, some 2.3% of administrative fees are paid to travel agencies. Airlines will review. There will be a review to see if this percentage is appropriate. We will discuss with airlines. Any follow-up? Well, next round. Thank you. Next, Mr. Benson Look. Thank you, Chairman. The Hong Kong SAR government should provide necessary, in accordance with Article 128 of the Basic Law, we need to comply with the certain principle. The increase in the APDT is about 70%. The industry is worried that it will affect the desire for tourists to come to Hong Kong. The increase in the APDT will also reduce the number of visitors to Hong Kong. How can we ensure Hong Kong will continue to be an international aviation hub? This is a very important topic that we need to explore. As for transfer passengers, I understand the government has looked into new measures for passengers to not pay the APDT. Passengers will have to leave on the same day. I welcome this arrangement, but I have questions on two fronts. One, will the government consider relaxing the requirements of the categories of passengers? Say for sea-to-air passengers, they enjoy concessions. For air-to-air, same. But more and more passengers come to Hong Kong through high-speed rail. They make a short stop over in Hong Kong. They spend in Hong Kong. Afterwards, they take a plane to other countries from Hong Kong. So in relation to relaxing the category of passengers, Will you consider covering bridge-to-air passengers? I believe this will help us enhance our position as an international aviation hub. We have a fiscal deficit. This is an extraordinary measure to increase the APDT. I understand we need to adopt this measure in this extraordinary time. Will the administration consider adding a sunset clause so that we can review this arrangement or reduce the APDT to the existing level? Thank you, Chairman.
Administration. Thank you, Mr. Bensaluk, for your two questions. On increasing number of passengers, yes, we share your view. On the exemption arrangement for connecting flight passengers on the next day, well, that's just our first step. We're not going to stop there. We're going to consider further with the airport authority on measures that we could take further for exemptions, for example. As I mentioned about 3 years ago, we added more classes to the exemption list to cover passengers from GBA or using the Hong Kong-Macau bridge. And what we want to do is to make sure our measures are targeted and that they can be operated properly. For example, for passengers coming from the Hong Kong-Macau bridge or by ferry, these the scope is under control because we take dedicated coaches or ferries to the airport, so we know they come here for their flights, and so that's why it's easy to make the arrangement. But then we have to consider other modes of transport. For example, taking the people taking the express rail link to Hong Kong. Then we have to see how we sort out the refund arrangement and so on. So we need to consider all the operational details before we could include more classes of passengers. But in any case, we will consider such matters further with the airport authority. The second question. Well, we thank Mr. Luk for his understanding. Yes, we have a fiscal deficit. That's why we want to increase the tax revenue here. Now, it is not the usual practice to include a sunset clause for the increase of taxes. But in that case, we've heard the members' views. If the fiscal position of the government improves, then can there be changes to the different tax items? Well, we can certainly consider that later. On APDT and hotel accommodation tax, they are all increased for the same reasons. We know this is extraordinary time, so we need to take extraordinary measures. But please don't try to impose further impact on the MICE or meta event sectors. I hope when your fiscal position improves, you remove these additional tax items. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chun Sing, well, the government needs to generate revenue because of the fiscal deficit, and there is only a single reason for increasing taxes. It's because you want to increase revenue. Well, you might say if it's just a minor adjustment, there's no point. If that's the case, then we can't increase any tax revenue. But I do appreciate that. But I'd like to learn more about the actual arrangement. You're increasing the APDT to $200. Have you considered increasing it by phases? Because this year Hong Kong has set a specific target. We want to bring in more than 50 million travelers to Hong Kong. If that's the case, it will benefit the community as a whole. It will benefit various sectors. So we will need to achieve that target. So perhaps in the first year, we will only increase it to $160. That means you will be collecting about $4 billion less, $400 million less. And then in the next year, you could increase it to $200. So then you have additional revenue of $1.6 billion. So that means you increase the API DT in two phases, so it doesn't make much of a difference to visitors. And so you do it incrementally. So it will be easier for the sector to adapt to the arrangement. So in the first year, you're just collecting $400 million less. Is that acceptable to the government? That's the first point. And then another issue is about the budget airlines. Well, maybe a ticket costs just $800 or $900 on a budget airline, and if you increase the tax to $200, then passengers may think it all adds up. With budget airlines, I can't check in my luggage, and then I have to be charged for a cup of coffee. Then I might just forget about taking a budget airline. So what is the impact on the market? I don't think you answered that question, or maybe you have. You might say that Hong Kong does not compete on prices, and it's fine if budget airlines don't operate here because we don't compete on prices. Is that really what you meant? So on the impact on budget airlines, what is your position? Singapore, Japan, they all operate. There are many budget airlines there. In Hong Kong, we also have companies operating budget airlines, so they are competitors. So what is the impact on the budget airlines? I'd like to learn more about that. Administration, please. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your views. Thank you for your understanding. Your proposal of increasing the tax in phases, we fully appreciate the rationale for your proposal. But then we're proposing to increase the APDT from $120 to $200, and each year we have an additional $1.6 billion. But if we only increase it by $40, that is by half the originally proposed amount, to say $160, then we won't be collecting as much additional revenue. And we don't want to give the impression that we increase the tax every year. So there are merits in neither proposals, really, and demerits too. So maybe it's better just to do it in one step, and it's clear enough to everybody. Budget airlines, we know the landscape there is changing. Now, for our as an international aviation hub, we certainly welcome budget airlines because there are different services to cater to different needs. And so far it seems in other airports they treat all airlines equally when it comes to the levying of a construction levy or a departure tax. So they won't charge more for regular airlines and less for budget airlines. So we want to follow the same practice. And so I think this sector will accept that we charge everyone the same. Mr. Lam Chun Sing, well, the two-phase increase or three-phase increase is suggested by the sector. I hope you'll consider it, because in the first year, only collecting a little less, still the government will be able to generate additional revenue. So I hope you'll consider that again. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the government has a heavy financial pressure, so it definitely has to make savings and generate revenues. So I do appreciate the reasons behind increasing the APDT, but then it seems the sector has strong views about that. They're worried that it will affect our position as an international aviation hub. Personally, I think we have to increase APDT. We can't really go back on this, but can we just halve the increase so there is less impact on passengers? Now, the government has just announced that it will actually relax the exemption to include passengers taking connect flights on the next day. So it's more than I have thought about. But then the increase actually will affect short-haul flights, in particular budget airlines operating short-haul flights, because a ticket only costs a few $100s, and then the levy and the tax will cost some $350. So it's almost the same amount as the price of an air ticket. And so budget airlines may then be deterred. They may choose to turn to other airports instead. So can we follow the arrangement of the construction levy? So we'll consider the long and short haul flights. We'll also consider the different classes, the cabin classes. For example, if you travel on business class or first class, then you pay more. And if you travel on economy class or on a short haul flight, then you can pay less. Then because then we will follow the principle of those with more pay more, and then there will be less of an impact on budget airlines. And if there is a higher tax for business or first class travelers, so the impact is actually much less. So will you consider a review mechanism? So you review the arrangement after a certain period. Thank you. Dr. Hong, on the review mechanism, as I said, after we implement this increase, and if the fiscal position of the government improves, or if there are other policy needs, we will actually review the fee level, the tax level from time to time. Another question is on budget airlines. The airport construction levy. Do we need to make other changes or offer some preferential treatment to budget airlines? Now, just now, Dr. Hong was talking about the departure tax. But then for the construction levy, the level changes depending on the cabin class or whether a flight is long or short haul. But with the air passenger departure tax, there is no such distinction. Now, let's say there are different parameters to determine the departure tax. Then maybe it's difficult to follow for consumers. So that's why we go for a straightforward approach, $200 per head. So everybody knows what the rate is. And then if the construction levy is also added, then everybody knows what the total amount is. So we believe that's a straightforward approach, and we incline to keep to this approach. Thank you. Mr. Rock Chen, I'm Mr. Clare. I'm a board member of the Airport Authority. And in the introduction, the government has announced that it will extend the scope of exemption to cover passengers taking connecting flights on the next day. So while passengers stay in Hong Kong, there's no point, keeping them trapped in the Airport Authority terminal. Can you consider promoting tourism for connecting flight passengers? So you make transport arrangements, and they can go to the key tourist attractions here. They could go shopping and so on. So we make the most of the 24 or 36 hours of transit time of passenger stay here. And then now in the aviation sector, competition is not just between airlines, but also it's between hubs. Shenzhen wants to become an aviation hub. Guangzhou is working in the direction. Singapore, of course, an hub, and Dubai is trying to catch up. Now, as the Permanent Secretary pointed out, Hong Kong does not compete on price. Even if we increase the tax to $200, it won't affect the passenger volume. But I want to ask a macro question. How can the Airport Authority work together with the sector to bring more TsyB passengers to transit through Hong Kong when they travel to other parts of the world? So I'm talking about the macro situation. Can you enlighten me on that? Thank you, Mr. Rock Chen. Your first suggestion is brilliant. Now we relax the exemption arrangement, so connecting flight passengers don't need to pay the tax. We don't want them to just stay in the airport. We want them to make the most of the 12 hours or so they spend in Hong Kong, and they will go and look around in Hong Kong. So with this new policy initiative, how can we make the most of it? We'll talk to the airport authority. This is a new exemption, and we believe that could consolidate our position as an international aviation hub. And then for transiting passengers during their short stay in Hong Kong, how to make the most of the time they stay here, so we can encourage them to spend or to do sightseeing around Hong Kong. And certainly this is a business opportunity we should explore. And second point, now of course I'm in charge of the I work on government finances. I will talk to other relevant parties, and we'll see how we should position ourselves compared to other neighboring aviation hubs. Perhaps I could give you a written reply after the meeting. But there's one point for sure. What Mr. Chen suggested is something we would like to work on. Apart from the Hong Kong Joy Macau Bridge, apart from the Sky Pier, we have to consider other ways to encourage TsyB passengers to make the most of our international airport and perhaps also spend a day in Hong Kong. So this is not about government finances, but rather it's about promoting tourism. So it's something in a broader sense. I'll certainly talk to the airport authority about it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any follow-up? No. Next member, Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, members talked about having reservations about the increase in the APDT. Now we are discussing the pros and cons of the policy. Well, I have to make it clear, I have a lot of reservation about it. After the APDT is increased, passengers, airlines, travel agencies, the airport, we will all suffer. The competitiveness will be undermined. Well, I cannot agree with the administration that this is a small amount and this is a good policy. I cannot agree. I understand we have a fiscal deficit and we need to increase revenue, but is this the most significant goal for Hong Kong? Is it the overriding goal for Hong Kong? Do we have to increase the APDT at the expense of all parties? On the national level, the central authorities said that it is important to put in place counter-cyclical measures to counter the uncertainties around the world. So how can we develop ourselves into an international aviation hub? We have the 3 one-way system in Hong Kong. We also have other facilities, but passenger throughput only achieved 70% or so of the pre-pandemic level. We need to make the most of the 3rd runway. This is our ultimate goal. In the 2 sessions, the officials of the mainland said that the fiscal deficit isn't the most serious problem, as we can see from the headlines of the news. So, must we increase the APDT? Is that an overriding policy? Well, in economics, price is elastic, as we learn in secondary schools. So what products, what goods have elastic price or inelastic price? Airline services say airfares. This is a very typical example. Have we conducted any scientific analyses? Have we looked into the impact on the supply and demand of airfares with an increase in the APDT? Unless you have conducted a study to show that the airfares are inelastic, then we may consider putting in place this arrangement. But I cannot see this in the paper, where we shouldn't compete on prices. Yes, this is correct, but it doesn't mean a high price wouldn't have any problem, wouldn't cause any impact. We don't compete on prices, but it doesn't mean that we can increase the price drastically. We all know what we are facing. We all understand the competition we are facing. It's very keen. Our passenger throughput hasn't yet recovered to our peak. Now the administration said that we aren't competing on price. Passengers will pay anyway. I have a large question mark. Let's see the international airport in Shenzhen. Some people in Hong Kong go to Shenzhen airport to take a flight. So it doesn't make sense to say that there's no impact on passengers setting off in Hong Kong. So I have to make it clear. I have great reservations about the increase in the APDT. I noticed Mr. Perry Yu has written to the chairman about CSA. I will support the CSA to be moved by Mr. Perry Yu. P.S. I agree that no one likes to see any increase in the fee. There's no dispute. We have a fiscal deficit. When we increase revenue and make savings, it is actually not practical to think that there wouldn't be any impact whatsoever. So we want to minimize the impact. Just now, Mr. Gary Zhang said whether we had referred to any statistics. Say after we increase the APDT by $80, there won't be any impact on passenger throughput. I'd like to cite one example. Airport construction fee. It started 6 to 7 years ago. AA started charging the ACF because of the construction of the 3-runway system. The number of airport passengers increased despite the ACF until we were hit by the pandemic. So I don't think any increase in the APDT will impact on the decision of passengers to travel. According to the spending survey of the TsyB, long-haul and short-haul passengers spend about $6,000 to $7,000 on the trip. So I don't think there would be any impact on tourists coming to Hong Kong. Mr. Gary Zhang, well, just now the administration talked about scientific basis. Well, I hope the administration will provide price elasticity analyses about airfares. Maybe a written reply? Yes, thank you. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. Members just now talked about the reservation about the increase in APDT. I've been listening to members. Before this meeting, I met with different industries or different people in the industry. I've heard their views. They have a stronger position than I expected. They're not saying there shouldn't be any increase, but does it have to be such a large increase? I'd like to express my views. Just now, the administration said that we shouldn't do it just because the amount is not large enough. But if it will make a huge impact on the economy, then we need to tread with caution. We have representatives from the FSTB, but now we are discussing the pros and cons of the policy. It's more than an increase of $80. It's about the implications of the policy. Do we have statistics? As Mr. Gary Zhang said, have you conducted any sensitivity analyses? We need to collect statistics. If we increase the APDT by $80, as the government said, they could not see any impact on the desire for tourists to come to Hong Kong. Well, if you haven't conducted any analyses, just tell us you haven't done so. It doesn't matter. Actually, not just the FSTB or the Financial Secretary. The CEDB, other departments and so on, if you have conducted any analyses, please show us your analyses. What we are worried is that you fail to see the macro situation. Let's take liquor tax as an example, or liquor duty as an example. The government put forward grounds. The government said that they had made reference to the past experience. They had evidence, they had figures to back it up. On the actual impact or the psychological impact, budget airlines bear the brunt. The airfares are just a few $100s. There are many routes flying to cities in the mainland or cities in the GBA. Now we have the high-speed rail. Have you conducted any analyses on the impact on budget airlines? For expensive airfares, the psychological impact may be at play. The administration may say, well, we are still competitive. Tourists will still come to Hong Kong. If the administration doesn't consider putting in place this arrangement by phases, will you consider using the arrangement of liquor duty? Say for airfares below a certain amount, then the APDT will stay unchanged. For airfares above a certain amount, you may consider increasing the APDT to $200. The government should have done analyses, so please show us or tell us when you increase the APDT to $120 to $200, have you conducted any sensitivity analyses? Apart from psychological impact, you need to consider the impact on the overall economy. The development of budget airlines is sensitive to the increase in the APDT. I hope the administration will explain to us. P.S. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your views. When we propose to increase the APDT, we think there would be much of an impact on passengers. There are three main reasons. One, the APDT hasn't been adjusted for over 20 years. We're just going to increase the APDT by $80, comparing with the consumption amount of $6,000 to $7,000. It's actually on the low side. After the implementation of the ACF airport construction fee, the number of passengers hasn't been affected. With these three factors, we have decided to propose to increase the APDT. We share the same goal. We don't want to increase the APDT, but in the end we suffer losses. Of course, increasing the APDT would definitely affect some people. But we must keep our reputation as an international aviation hub. Members put forward a lot of concerns today. I understand members' concerns. But please give us some time. I will relay your concerns, your views, back to discuss it with my team as well as the higher echelons of the government. We'll definitely seriously consider your concerns. regarding whether we will make further adjustments, excluding transfer passengers, which we will definitely put in place exemptions. Please give us some time. We will discuss the arrangements. Just one follow-up, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. The administration took on board our view. 2359 plus 1, that is maximum within 24 hours. Fees won't be charged. I hope the government will take on board our view and adopt the mindset of a facilitator to think about how you can better refine the APDT policy. Next, Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 main points to supplement. I understand that the government wants to increase revenue for the public coffers. We don't have Ms. Mabel Chan, Secretary for Transport and Logistics, with us today. We are here to discuss financial matters. Just now, the administration said that the amount of $80 shouldn't have much of an impact on tourists, given that they spend an average of $6,000 to $7,000 on their trip. But then after the pandemic, the travel experience has changed. The consumption patterns of tourists have changed. In the past, they like buying designer brand products, but now they want to see the scenery. They've changed. After the pandemic, the consumption pattern has changed. Regarding our reputation, Hong Kong International Airport and Singapore Changi Airport had been competing for the best airport in the world. There's a lot of information online. Say the best airport around the world. There's a lot of such information online. In 2020, we ranked one of the top 10 airports around the world. We ranked 5th or 6th. This year, however, we dropped out of the top 10. We ranked 11th in 2024. I understand there are different factors or agendas in the rating, but we aren't only competing with Singapore, we're also competing with the GBA. We don't just look at the price. We shouldn't just compare ourselves with Singapore. Singapore has more tourists and amount of consumption than Hong Kong. We are still ranking 2nd. Say Tokyo, Seoul, or Guangzhou and Shenzhen. Our expenditure is much more than theirs. The PS responded to us whether a review would be conducted. Well, the administration said that they would conduct a review after putting in place this arrangement. But why don't we conduct a review after the economy has improved? Is a chicken or egg situation. The travel industry is having a hard time, and if we are going to implement this arrangement, are we hindering the development of the economy or the recovery of the economy?
多謝。
Administration, thank you, Ms. Judy Chen, for your views. Of course, when we consider the increase to the departure tax, we have to consider the impact on airlines and tourism. We make sure there is not immense impact. So that's the direction we work towards. Now, if we want to introduce relaxation measures, we must take a targeted approach. We must target the passengers we want to bring to Hong Kong, or passengers who would bring additional economic benefits to Hong Kong. We shouldn't just adopt an across-the-board approach, because we want to be more precise with our measures. On the timing of the increase, yes, I know that there are certain sectors still under recovery. They'd like more support from the government. So it's best we don't increase fees and charges. We fully appreciate that. But then at the same time, we've had a fiscal deficit in the past few years. We need to show to international rating agency that the government is committed to reverse the deficit. So we have to go for making savings and generating revenue. There are no other ways. And in fact, the budget this year focuses more on making savings. Now, the entire government will make savings by 2% every year. So in the first year is $9 billion, and then in a few years it will be savings of $29 billion. So that's the most that we can do to help with the deficit. Of course, it's still not easy, but then we are making a lot of savings, and then we're just increasing revenue, targeting particular groups who could afford it. Mr. Holden Chow. Now, I've heard members' views. I'd like to share my own views. First, no one likes to see fees increased. But I think the discussion today is more on the image of our airport as it has to compete with many other airports. Of course, to the public, if you increase the tax by $80, nobody wants it. But then, well, you tell us the government has a deficit, so something needs to be done to increase the revenue. I can't refute that. But I think members made good observation. That is, if we take this step, will people, the image of our airport be affected? That's members' concern, because there is keen competition among neighboring airports. With connecting flight passengers, you are going to relax the arrangement beyond the expectation of most. And if you look at the Dubai airport, it focuses on connecting flight passengers. The airport tells passengers, well, if you connect transit through Dubai, you can then go out to look around Dubai for 8 hours, and so when people get to see Dubai, they may come back. So we also want to attract more connecting flight passengers. Maybe Hong Kong is not their first destination. They're going elsewhere. For example, European travelers like to go to Southeast Asia. If they transit through Hong Kong, then they get a chance to see Hong Kong for a few hours. And then they'll see next time if they actually stop here. So I think we need to pay attention to the need to attract connecting flight passengers. And on tax increase, nobody welcomes that. Well, the FSTB is here as well. I'd also like to raise another point. Apart from the APDT increase, you're going to change the $2 scheme. There won't be $2,500 study grant, and then substantial increase in fees at public hospitals. So I think these items probably have an even bigger impact. Now, I know we have a fiscal deficit, so it's a tough time, but then we have to see what the impact is on the public. I mentioned three other fee items, probably, or the three other schemes, probably they have an even bigger and more immediate impact on the public than the APDT increase. But still, I hope the government will see this. If we increase APDT, we are worried that may affect the perception of others of our airport. We need to hold on to the connecting flight passengers. We need to bring in more connecting flight passengers. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you. Response, please, from the administration. Thank you, Mr. Holden Chow, for your views, and thank you for your understanding. Now, we after balancing all factors, we believe the increase in APDT would have a relatively lesser impact on the public. Because if we increase salary taxes, for instance, and everybody will be affected. But then if we increase APDT when Hong Kong residents travel, they will be affected. And then there are other international travelers who will help by paying the tax. So that's why we believe this is a feasible option. So that means the increase won't have to be shouldered entirely by local residents. Then I also share Mr. Holden Chow's views. Now, we're going to propose exemption for connecting tight flight passengers because we want them to, say, spend half a day in the urban areas. And then they may get a good impression of Hong Kong, and next time they'll choose to travel to Hong Kong as a destination. So definitely something we will want to promote. Mr. Ong Kong, I'm not a member of the Bills Committee, but then just now I heard what Mr. Gary Zhang said on TV. So, and I also support Mr. Perry Yu very much. That's why I want to come here and say a few words. Thank you for your forbearance. Now, I think with this measure, it may seem that you have an additional $1 billion or so of revenue, but actually you end up losing more. Because it's a matter of image and competitiveness. $1.6 billion, if you build one market less, you make that saving. So do you really want to do this? Because here we're not talking about just 7 million residents, but rather many more travelers who come to Hong Kong. I was following the meeting on TV just now, and it seems that the government is on a different wavelength than us. Well, yes, we want to reduce the deficit, and I never doubt your ability and determination to cut the deficit. But then the public wants to see that we are able to develop the economy. Now, I believe competitiveness will be affected and image will be affected. I want to share my own experience. I just flew back from Singapore. You know, the air ticket was so expensive. I went there for a meeting. I traveled on economy, and the economy class seat was so tight. And then next, the girl sitting next to me, she was chatting for 3 hours, and I was forced to listen to her for 3 hours. And then I was traveling on economy at Cathay Pacific. It cost $6,900 for the fare, and then including all other fees and charges, I had to pay $7,887. It's a 3-hour flight. It's really tough. And then you want to bring in business travelers. You know, after COVID, people prefer to go for Zoom meetings to save on traveling costs. And now you want to increase their cost. to global travelers, they don't care whether you have a third runway or fourth runway. But most importantly to them, they don't want their traveling costs to go up. And then in recent years, we haven't built many new hotels in Hong Kong. So our competitiveness compared to our neighbors, even cities in the Greater Bay Area, we don't have cheaper and nicer hotels than they have. So why do we want to increase the tax, even though it's just $80? Don't think it's a small amount. If it's such a small amount, don't bother increasing it at all. So I just want to state my position. I certainly support Mr. Perry Yu. Thank you. And response, please. Thank Mr. Chairman. I fully follow Ms. Kong's concern. But I can assure Ms. Kong and other members, when the government comes up with any measures to generate revenue, we're not just thinking about reducing the fiscal deficit. Now, when we collect additional revenue, we will spend it well on other livelihood-related issues. For example, if we want to promote tourism, then we give funding to the tourism board and or the trade development board to promote trade and tourism, and their funds come entirely from government revenue. So if we increase our revenue, then we can invest more in tourism or the development of tourist attractions. Thank you.
All right, second round. I'll draw a line here. I'll give 3 minutes to each member speaking in the second round, questions and answers included. We'll start with Mr. Perry Yu. Thank you, Chairman. For budget for 2 years in a row, I'd like to express my views. It seems the administration isn't really solving the problems. I understand that the PS is explaining from the perspective of managing the public coffers. We now have the 3-runway system in Hong Kong. We need to grow the pie larger. We need to make the airport vibrant. We want to increase tax revenue. That's exactly how we can increase revenue. $1.6 billion. Well, I have doubt whether you will receive a revenue of $1.6 billion. Well, I've done some preparation for the ACI. In the policy brief, they have conducted a study. It was done in 2020. If you increase the amount by 10%, that will affect 0.9% of passenger trips rather. So at least 3 million passengers will be affected. We will see 3 million passengers less. I'm not sure if the administration has done similar analyses. But we have blind spots when discussing these policy. From $120 to $200, well, it's not that simple. From $275 to $355 or even to $425. It's about the cost, not just in the APDT. Travelers consider the lump sum tax, not just the air passenger departure tax. That's why we need to think out of the box. Just now, the administration said there would be exemption arrangements, say expanding the scope of same-day passengers to passengers that will leave on the following day. We shouldn't restrict these passengers in the restricted area. They should be allowed to leave the restricted area and spend a day in Hong Kong before they leave Hong Kong. Otherwise, no matter how long the period they will stay in Hong Kong, it won't help Hong Kong. Even if they stay in Hong Kong for 100 hours, it won't help Hong Kong. You need to launch measures that will indeed help Hong Kong. We call them transit passengers. While passengers have 7 days of visa-free arrangements when they hold an air ticket. and we leave Hong Kong. If we don't use this policy well, then it will do us no good. We need to think whether there is any room for adjustment of the policy. P.S. In a response, I understand the concerns of Mr. Perry Yu and the potential impact on the shipping industry. Hong Kong is a prime destination for tourists. We need to be attractive enough to attract tourists to Hong Kong. On expenditure, say the APDT only accounts for a small portion, but I understand concerns of members. First, as I said at the beginning, for exemption arrangements for passengers leaving on the next day, we will put in place this relaxation measure using an other amendment bill. If we can exempt further categories of passengers so that they will make more economic contributions to Hong Kong, we keep our mind open. Well, as Mr. Perry Yu said, we never require passengers to stay in the restricted area. They can definitely leave the airport. They can spend a day in Hong Kong while still enjoying the tax-free arrangement. Any half-day trip or full-day trip for tourists so that they can make the most of their day in Hong Kong, well, we should explore these trips. For the increase by $80, some members have concerns, some have reservations. I have taken your point. I will relay your concerns to the management. Thank you. Mr. Benson Look. Thank you, Chairman. Well, we definitely have to implement tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. The three-runway system has been commissioned as well, so we need to continue to promote mega-event economy to boost the number of tourists to Hong Kong. But the air passenger departure tax will not do us any good. The PS said that there wouldn't be much of an impact on Hong Kong. Can the administration tell us, give us a very logical explanation, the impact on passengers? Well, can you tell us once again why this increase in the APDT won't cause any impact on passengers? Regarding the exemption arrangement, I believe this is the first measure. We want to benefit transfer passengers. We want to let them go to the city to spend. I believe we need a package of measures. Say for high-speed rail passengers coming to Hong Kong, and then they will take flight in Hong Kong. It's actually too slow to conduct this study. Can we adopt a package of measures to benefit transfer passengers? Say despite the increase by $80, we still have a basket of measures so that the impact of this measure will be offset. This will give passengers and the industry peace of mind. P.S. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Benson Look. From the perspective of airport operations, it's actually a business for the airport. We want the airport to be vibrant. We want to attract tourists to Hong Kong. Airport infrastructures are key in this regard. We've been enhancing our work on this front. Members are concerned whether the increase of $80 will cause not much of an impact on the travel industry. Well, we remain our stance. Well, I understand members have some concerns, so we'll go back and study members' point. We'll see whether there is any room for taking on board members' views and concerns. Your points are all taken. Please rest assured, members. We still believe that increasing the APDT by $80 won't have a huge impact on the airport or on passengers. But we may take a more cautious approach or more progressive approach. Will it be more appropriate? Will it give the public peace of mind? We've taken your point and we'll consider it. Thank you. Well, I thank the administration for the positive response. $120 to be increased to $200. It will undermine our competitiveness, and it will also affect the wallets of passengers. I hope the administration will take on board members' views. So do we need to invite the public or deputations to provide written submissions to the LegCo, or do we need to hold public hearings with deputations? We have consulted different organizations or bodies. Can you let us know which bodies you have consulted? P.S. Well, this is a measure in the budget. Before we announced the budget, we didn't consult the industry. This is the principle we go by when handling measures under the budget. But after the budget has been announced, we discussed with airlines as well as the industry. They have expressed their views. It's increased too large. They also expressed concerns over impact on transfer passengers. That's why we mention relaxation arrangements. We want to address the concerns of the industry. Thank you. The administration has already consulted organizations. So do we still need to hold a public hearing or invite written representations from the public? Mr. Holden Chow? Well, should we invite the public to provide written submissions? We should give them chances to write to us. Written submissions, right? All right. 1 week? All right, 1 week for written submissions. Do members agree? Yes? All right. After we have received the written submissions and the administration's responses, they will be circulated to members. Thank you. Next agenda item, clause-by-clause scrutiny. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Well, Chairman, before we start clause-by-clause scrutiny, I'd like to say many members have put forward their views. Some have made recommendations, say putting in place this arrangement in phases or according to different types of airlines, say flagship carriers and budget airlines, or any measures for transfer passengers not to be confined to the restricted area so that they can spend a day in Hong Kong. From $120 to $200. There are also suggestions that the amount should be halved. Just now, the PS said that they would consider these views. Do you mean you will relay our views to the management and afterwards you will come back to the council and make adjustments where appropriate? If we start clause-by-clause scrutiny before the administration responds, I believe Chairman will handle the amendment to be moved by Mr. Perry Yeo. Clause-by-clause scrutiny will be very short in this Bills Committee. Just a few provisions, just a few clauses. So should we wait until the administration responds to us before we start clause-by-clause scrutiny? Any response, administration? Thank you, Chairman. Well, yes, it's possible. This bill is rather straightforward. I will relay views of members to the senior officials. Members have put forward some views, and we may make adjustments or amendments as well. Members would like to speak, right? Dr. Wendy Hong? Well, I support Mr. Chen Xiu-hong's views. We may discuss the we may start clause by clause scrutiny at the next meeting. So, administration, when will you respond to us? Chairman, within 2 weeks, I hope we can give you a reply. So we'll handle the written responses at the same time. So let's adjourn our meeting, all right? Thank you. Thank you, members. Meeting adjourned.